Stampers, welcome to fancyforstampin.com. I'm Josie Collar. Today we're going to make this chicken card. And if you know me, if you're one of my friends or family members, you know that I love chickens. I'm a chicken lover. So using the Hey Chick stamp set, we're going to make this cute little chicken card. Can't ever have enough chickens around. I collect vintage and antique roosters and chickens. So this stamp set, which is a Sale-a-braton set, was right up my alley. And you can have it too if you spend $50 in my online store. It's one of the stamp sets that you can choose out of Sale-a-braton. I got the wood mount. I usually get clear, but I got the wood mount set this time because it is a Sale-a-braton set and I was getting it free, so I figured might as well go for broke and get the wood mount set. So let's get started. These are the things you're going to need. You will need a piece of the new doily. You will need about a 4-inch long piece of burlap ribbon. You will need a 3 by 3 inch piece of the Sending Love DSP, and I chose to use the striped. You will need a 4.5 by 3.5 inch piece of Whisper White cardstock, a 3/4 by 6 inch piece of craft cardstock, a 4-inch by 5.25 inch piece of craft cardstock, a piece of scrap cardstock craft that we're going to be stamping on, and for the card base, a 5.5 by 8.5 inch piece of real red cardstock. So we're going to be doing some fussy cutting in this card. I know a lot of people don't like to, but that's just something that we're going to have to do. Oh, you're also going to be using the Hexagon Dynamic embossing folder and the Stitch Shapes frameless dies and watercolor pencils. I put my watercolor pencils into one of these clear stamp cases because it was just easier for me to see what I was grabbing for when I needed to use them. Okay, so we're going to start with basic black ink and our scrap of craft cardstock and each of the chicken stamps, and we're going to stamp them on this piece of craft cardstock. And while we're stamping, I'm going to take my 3/4 inch by 6 inch strip of craft cardstock, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment "Have a good day" toward the right end. I'm going to leave enough space here so that later on I can come in and banner this end. Okay, once we've got everything stamped, we're going to have to start watercoloring. And watercoloring is something, I think it's a skill that you acquire as you practice, because I don't think I'm really good at it. It's just, oops, lost a pencil. Something you need to do and play around with. I'm going to be using my watercolor pencils and a blender pen. So we want to start with this large chicken here, and what I did was I colored in the head in yellow, nice and dark, and then I added a little white, and around the wing, and then I colored the rest in with yellow. Well, I didn't totally color it in because I'm going to blend with my blender pen. I'm going to pool these colors together. And spread to the rest of the chicken's body, if that makes sense. And I see a little my black is smearing. but it doesn't look bad. Okay, and that's all I'm going to do on this rooster. Maybe I'll add a little more yellow here. Rooster or chicken, I'm not sure which you would call it. There, and that's good on this one. Okay, we're going to put a little red on his crown and his wattle, and a little orange on his beak. And we can blend that a little too with the blender pen. Okay, so that's our first one. Second one, I used even less yellow. I did his beak orange, and his feet are orange. And yellow, I just did his head and down his neck, and I used the blender pen to pull that color into the rest of his body. So he's not real yellow, but he's yellow enough. Okay, and his hair and tail feathers are red. So we'll color those in with red. And if you'll notice, I'm not coloring each feather because, again, we'll use our blender pen to pull that color into the other feathers. And there's his tail. Okay, and this big guy, I just put some red on his feather, at the end of his feather, and one side of his head, and to the left on his tail. And we'll use the blender pen to spread all of that. We need a little red on his crown. Not orange, yellow. Daffodil Delight. Just on his tail, lightly, and then we'll spread it with the blender pen. Let me get a different blender pen here. There we go. Just like that. And of course, I forgot to do his feet. In pumpkin pie, that's not orange, it's pumpkin pie. And his beak. Let's get this guy. Okay, and now we're ready to cut him out. So, give me a second or two to do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I got my roosters cut out. And when I finished with that, I went ahead and cut out a square with the largest square from the Stitched Framelits dies out of this striped piece of Sending Love DSP. And I also took the liberty of running my 4.5 by 3.5 inch piece of Whisper White cardstock through the Hexagons Dynamic embossing folder. So What we're going to do next is we're going to sponge around with soft suede ink. We're going to sponge the edges of this piece of Whisper White all around, and a little on the top to give it that rustic look. I want to get it on there. Let's get some on the hexagons, just like that. And we're going to sponge around the edges of this square. And we're going to spread a little on the top of that, just like that, just to dirty it up a little. And here's our banner. We want to sponge that too. So I'm going to cut a banner on the end. And we'll sponge around this. Give everything that rustic look. Oh, and we also need to sponge around our 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of craft cardstock. Okay, there we go. All right, now we're going to assemble. This piece of Whisper White cardstock gets attached to the top right corner using dimensionals, one in each corner. Right there. Okay, and then we're going to put some dimensionals on the back of this cutout square. Okay, and this will go on like so. Okay, and we'll take our piece of our 4-inch piece. Is that 4 inches? Yeah, it's a 4-inch piece of burlap ribbon. We're going to fold it in half, and I'm going to get this to stick together by using a glue dot. A glue dot there on the end, and then I'm going to fold it in half so it stays together. And then I'm going to put another glue dot on there, and we're just going to tuck that right under there so it sticks up. Okay, now we want to attach our chickens, so I used dimensionals for that. We got our first big guy, and if you notice when I fussy cut out the feet, I wasn't real worried about what I did there because they're pretty much going to be covered. Stuck him on there. And she goes right about there. She overlaps a little. Okay, and then before we put this third rooster on, we need to put our sentiment on here. And what I did was I wrapped it around the end, and then I used a stapler and stapled it like that. And I put a little snail adhesive on the back of this skinny guy. and set him right there. So he overlaps. And now the last thing, oh, I forgot my little piece of doily. See, there's a little piece of doily there. I get so caught up in what I'm doing that sometimes I forget pieces. But we'll just cut a little off. And I will get my craft sheet and add a little snail. And we'll just tuck this right under here, under the banner. And if you leave it off totally, it's okay too. So there's that. So it's sticking out right there. See that there? Okay, then we'll flip it over. Add some dimensionals to the back. And we will add this to our real red card base after I fold it in half. My bone folder. And there you have it, our chicken card. Well, I hope you enjoyed your stop here today. Until next time, I'm Josie Cauler. Happy stamping.